As you probably know, I've been really researching this kind of like area of the property manager as a real estate investor. And because of that, I went to Paul Kankowski and Wolfgang Croskey's PM Systems Conference Real Estate Investor Mastermind last week because I'm researching this, because I myself want to be a better investor. And, I'm just really trying to connect the dots between what's stopping property managers from doing it and how to enable that and all these good things. I learned a bunch, but today I really want to share with you two concepts that I think were the ones that really stood out for me for the value proposition here and what's in it for you. Welcome to the Property Management Frame Breakers podcast. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez, and I am here to introduce you to the folks in the property management space that have broken the frame of what you may believe was possible. This podcast is presented by Vendoroo. It is your all-in-one AI solution for resolving your maintenance needs. Let's go. So I'm at NARPM Nationals at the Rent Vine after party. It was like a luau that they did with, I can't remember the pet company, but it's like one of the pet screening companies. And I'm at this bonfire. I'm talking to a client of ours, Chris Whiter, who is future star of the show here. I actually just finished doing a podcast with him about an hour ago. And super impressed with what he had to say. But we're talking about real estate investing, and we happen to sit next to Paul Kankowski, who I've been wanting to meet for a long time because I'm a big fan of essentially the community and movement he's built around the PM Systems Conference. As we start talking about this real estate investing thing, he's like, actually, you know how I started the PM Systems Conference as a way to fill kind of like my need to learn about systems, and I want to get better at real estate investing. So I'm starting this new event, this real estate investing mastermind, the same way I started PM Systems Conference. And it sounds like you guys would want to go, to which I just immediately jumped up and got myself invited to, right? So went to Vegas. It was 2.5 days of being in a room with other property managers that are real estate investors as well at different levels, right? Like I would say I was in the like lower third of experience as far as being a real estate investor. But I myself, as you may or may not know, I got 5 doors. I employ 2 different property managers to manage those 5 doors. And I'm also the face of an investing podcast called Not Your Average Investor Show about rental property investing for JWB. And I learned a bunch, right? Like the number one thing that I kind of like took away from this thing is that real estate investing is really just kind of like tailored to fit your needs. I've known this for a while. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but it's really all about your goals and how you want to do it. That should really inform what your strategy should be. And in that light, for property managers themselves, there was 2 things that really, really stood out to me that I wasn't totally clear on before as far as how to do this as a property manager. The first one is this concept of subject to property acquisitions. And that's big fancy terms, right? But basically, when you find an off-market deal, there is nothing that stops you. There's nothing that says you can't cut a deal with that owner of that property that is trying to get rid of that property that could literally say anything, right? It could be just like, oh, okay, you're trying to get away from this thing because all you want to do is lock in $1,000 a month in cash flow. So I'm going to write a contract for you for $1,000 a month in cash flow. You give me the property, I do whatever I want with it, right? Or maybe it's, hey, this property is worth $200K as is. For you to sell it at $300,000, you're going to have to do like XYZ. And for you to like dispose of it, it's going to cost you $20K in fees. So like, why don't I just give you like $180 in cash right now and you make it mine, right? So basically there's like infinite ways of acquiring a property. And this was something that Sean Johnson was talking about in this mastermind. And I think that's really important because I think when most property managers think that they can't get into rental property investing, maybe they're thinking that they don't have enough cash on hand to buy a property. Maybe they're thinking they don't have enough like credit to qualify for a mortgage. But in reality, I've said this a couple of times. as property managers, you sit on the golden goose of rental property investing, which is the off-market property. You know when an owner is hard up for being able to keep a property based on the performance of how that's been going. And all you really need to do is understand what their needs are and what they're hoping to do with this thing, and you can cut your own deal. And once you have this deal kind of like locked in of like, these are the terms, you can go find private money and you can find these other investors that are willing to pitch in to do this. So this subject to idea is something that I'm going to have Sean Johnson on the podcast to talk about, but it's something that you should know if you're really trying to like build your own portfolio as a property manager. Second is something else I found really, really attractive. I actually forgot his name right now, but he was talking about how, he went through the different income tax brackets, and this idea of if you can, there's like this like one inflection point where there's these income tax brackets that jump from like 28% to like 30 something percent. And it's a big deal. And right now, there's a thing called bonus depreciation that's happening in rental property. In basically any kind of like asset that you acquire, it's in the new tax bill, and it's the ability to write off 100% of this like asset that you can acquire in your business. You can write off 100% of it in bonus depreciation. And what that can do is reduce your tax burden so that you drop drastically from like one tax bracket to another in the taxes you pay, and that could be tens of thousands of dollars that you're paying in taxes. And here is the kicker for property managers. When it comes to real estate, you can, someone like me who is a passive investor, I can only depreciate to the level of my passive income. Right? So like I might buy a rental property and I might depreciate it fully, but it's only going to be able to depreciate to the level of like, I can only depreciate from the income that I'm making from my rental properties and other investments. When you are a full-time real estate professional, which as a property manager you can depreciate to your active income. And that means that instead of paying a tax bill, right? Let's say you're going to owe, I don't know, you have a 300-door company, maybe you're clearing, I don't know, $500,000 in profit a year kind of thing. If you acquire a rental property and you bonus depreciate it, right? Like you can't depreciate the cost of the land, but you can depreciate the cost of the house, right? So let's say like in a $300,000 property, maybe $120,000 of that is the house. That can go right off the top of what your tax burden is to the IRS. So if you were paying, on a $500K income, that drops you down to like $380K, right? Or if you're making $250K, that drops you down to $120, and that drops you down considerably in the eyes of the IRS for the taxes that you have to pay, right? So like these two things are something that I think I'm definitely going to be doing podcasts about this to understand it. But if you are someone that's been listening to the real estate investing piece of this, you read that part of my book, you've been reading it in the newsletter, I'm getting louder about it, I think it might be the next book I write, and you don't want to wait for me to figure this out, this is what you got to go look for. Go look for subject to deals and how you can implement that yourself, and go look for bonus depreciation for full-time real estate professionals and how that relates to you depreciating from a real estate investment yourself. So I wanted to share that. That was like the two big aha moments I had from this conference. I have no doubt that event's going to turn into like an awesome event as time goes on, because that's what Paul and Wolf do when it comes to events. And I encourage you to continue to go down that path, and don't just add doors managed to your portfolio, but add doors owned to your portfolio.